Okay, it is 7:04. I'm calling this meeting to order. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our West Hills Neighborhood Council Environment Committee meeting. Today is Wednesday, June 12th, 2019. I'm Steve Randall and Alec Uzamek, and I co-chair the committee, and Alec is sitting to my right. Tonight we're going to discuss the items listed on the meeting agenda. There are copies of the agenda available on the table, I hope.
No.
Or did we run out? We ran out. Okay.
No, I don't have an agenda.
I took it, Merle. You wanted that?
No, it's okay. I have it on my phone.
So we're going to have a public comment period. So if you want to speak during the public comment period, please fill out a speaker card. Do you have speaker cards?
No.
We don't have speaker cards. Don't bother filling out a speaker card.
Do you want some paper?
That's okay. I'll just recognize you. Raise your hand.
Okay.
Speakers are limited to 2 minutes for their comments. And if you want to speak or make a comment on an agendized item, you're also limited to 2 minutes. Raise your hand and I'll recognize you. Certain laws apply to our ability to address certain issues that the public brings up. On the non-agendized items, we cannot respond to you. Please feel free to come in.
Come on in.
I think we're comfortable right here. Okay. You're just watching. All right, okay. You can take a chair if you want to sit down, just wheel a couple chairs over. I will. You're more than welcome.
Is he watching for school or something?
Yeah, he's watching it.
We
He didn't know what to expect.
No, we
with
all
the camera.
we often have kids come and watch
Oh, really? Yeah.
for school.
Okay. It's fine. It's fine.
You'll have 2 minutes also on agendized items to speak. I'm going to relax those rules possibly a little bit.
Thank you.
But we are going to be overseen tonight by a representative of Dunn, and so that limits my ability to fudge. I know, not here yet, but trust me,
Are we waiting?
no. When a person is speaking, please let's all be courteous. When somebody has the floor, do not interrupt. Treat each other with respect, and no inappropriate or uncivil actions. Lastly, please silence your cell phones. Okay, so we have a quorum, so that's been established. So let's take a look at the minutes for the the committee members. Please look at let's start with the April 10th minutes first. Take a look at them and see if they reflect to your best recollection what occurred at that meeting. And the minutes only reflect the meeting, what occurred. If there was a misspoken comment at the meeting, it's going to be reflected as the way it was spoken in the minutes.
Well done. I love that phrase, pass with grace.
So we're going to make one amendment, and that is
Yes.
body Clee is listed as a public attendee.
And safe.
And was Safe on the board yet?
No. Oh, yes, he was on the board.
So that he's
No.
I don't think he was.
Yes.
Was he on the board?
He was.
He was. Okay, then Safe and Bonnie will both be listed as council members to distinguish them from committee members. Does anybody have any corrections?
Of course.
I had corrections of what was said, but if you're saying I can't make those, then I don't
Well,
know.
only you can make we can make a correction if what is written here does not accurately reflect what was said.
And I'll wait till public comment.
All right. Anybody else have any corrections or adjustments on the April 10th
I'd
minutes?
like to move to approve the minutes as written at the moment.
Well, it can't be as written because we're making a minor change. It'll be as amended. Okay.
Yes, as amended.
Does anybody on the committee object to the minutes as amended? Any abstentions? Okay, approved,
Approved.
unanimous.
That's the 10th.
That's the 10th of April. So let's take a look at May 8th. Folks still reading?
I have a correction. I don't recall that John requested a donation from the WHNC. He requested an NPG.
That's the same thing in May 1st.
Well, but donate means something different than a grant.
Yeah, but we're only able to.
I believe John requested a donation, and we suggested that would be the form of an NPG.
Okay, then we should put that in here, please. And I'm suggesting that we put that in there. That the donation and the committee suggested it would be in the form of an NPG.
The committee suggested that Sky Valley volunteers apply for an NPG.
Correct. Please, can we put that in the minutes, please?
Yeah, well, Alec will add that.
Just so we have a paper trail.
Okay.
Any other comments on the May 8th minutes?
I have another one too.
Okay.
We, major event, it's a special events committee, not major events. Special events committee was planning a street fair, not several community street fairs, was planning a street fair. Otherwise, if there's several, we would go nuts.
How does that read? Was planning what?
Planning a community street fair. Cross the word several out, replace it with the word a,
Okay, got it.
take the S off the fairs.
And booths in the fair to announce their activities.
Okay.
That's all.
That was it.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else have any corrections or comments?
Oh, if you like, if you could spell my name right.
Oh, that would be useful.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Thank
Oh,
you.
you left an E out of his name. It's been your E.
Brad always catches these things for me.
He's a wordsmith. You can pull up a chair or sit in a chair. Are you Jasmine, by any chance?
Yes, hi.
Jasmine is from Dunn, is it?
Yes. I'm the Department of Neighborhood.
Good to have you.
Aren't
We
you
we
welcome?
started without you, but trust that everything is done properly.
Thank you.
Okay, so sensing that there are no other corrections, does anybody object to approving these minutes as amended? Any abstentions? Minutes are approved as amended.
And what did you do where it said that I was a public attendee?
Yeah,
We'll
we
change it.
changed it on the previous one to a council member.
Oh, okay.
That's to distinguish from committee members. Okay, Number 4, in opening business would be comments from the co-chairs. Alex, do you have any comments?
No, I don't have any comments.
Okay, I don't either, so we can move on to public comments. So I know that certain people want to make public comments, so Bonnie will go first, and then Christine, you want her to make a public comment?
Yes, please.
Okay, so,
Okay, I also attended, the hearing with the water board out in Oak Park in May. And, I took down a lot of notes. They said they found alpha radiation at outfall 8, which is Dayton Canyon. They found dioxins and lead were the most.
What was it?
Dioxins and lead,
Inlet.
alpha radiation, cyanide, lead, copper, selenium, iron, and zinc. And on October 31st, they're gonna have the final report on the fire and the findings. They had 57 violations. It ran everywhere because the fire burned their BMPs, which is straw wrapped in bale. They put along the road so nothing runs off. Also,
Is that the Bourne property?
all of it. Also, I have a letter, I don't know if anybody's read it, it's from July 17, 1959, and it was at the beginning of the meltdown where they released the radiation for 2 weeks before they got it shut down. And on today's level of radiation, it was 300,000 times over allowable.
that was in 1959.
1959. The operators were recommending they shut it down because every one of the in the high bay area, airborne activity was 3 times 10 to the -7, which in today's numbers is 300,000 over the limits. Also, I read today the Voices of Malibu, they did testing. They found char, soot, ash, and nuclear particulate material. Also, DTSC released a report saying that nothing from Rocketdyne was released, and then they took it off right away. So that's not listed anymore. Also, the DTSC RCRA report kind of chewed out Boeing because they don't have, they don't know how far north the TC plume is. We know right now it's under Sage Ranch. It's going north, but they've not put any new wells in. Also, the perchlorate plume is large and it's moving in every direction. They don't know the depth
Thank you.
and they don't know where it's moving. Also, Simi Valley is starting to have hearings on their pumping.
Bonnie, thank you.
Let me just give
2
about the water hearing. Okay, you said you would relax it just a little bit. Just one more thing. Simi Valley is having hearings now on pumping groundwater. They're using at least 2 wells, and the wells are contaminated from Rocketdyne. So the next, what did it do with my calendar? The next meeting is in August. Well, they're having one tomorrow in Camarillo. And then the next big meeting is in August. And that is, I didn't write it down. Oh, okay, water board see me on July the 11th,
Thank you.
July, not August.
July 11th.
Okay, so we have to try to stick with the time limit, so it's gotta be fair to everybody. Christina Walsh, you wanted to make a public comment?
Yes,
I'll give you
I watched the video from the April meeting where I wasn't even there, but I was referenced, and you, Steve Randall, stated that I agreed with you at another committee meeting, and that committee meeting is where you called me a liar. So I felt that that was inappropriate. You did not agree with me. Furthermore, Ms. Klee over here claimed that I, with Chris Rowe and John Luker, tried to stop the work group, which is nonsense. It is false. And I want the link removed because I think it's inappropriate to continue to smear me, especially when I'm not even at the meeting, and especially given the efforts you all have gone through to make sure I'm not welcome. There were letters from you claiming that I might show up and pull a weapon. Why on earth would you
What?
say that, Charlene?
Were you
I
talking
did
to
a
me?
Public Records Act request. request,
cost.
and that is what I learned. And as a result of this, I'm on the city's enemies list, and I just want to tell you all that I do not appreciate it.
Wait a minute,
Thank you for your,
can
thank
I
you for your
make a
comments.
comment?
No,
I
we're
have
not,
to.
no, I know.
You're
We're
not allowed to,
We're not
so
allowed
follow
to.
the rules.
She has the right to,
But wait a second,
No, no, no.
she's making an allegation, I'd like to see.
but we're not
What?
allowed, we're not
That's-
allowed.
She's about to speak.
I know.
We're done, ladies. About
Okay, yeah, I wanna hear this.
Public comment is directed at the committee as a whole, not to any one individual. Stakeholders have the right to public comment. It's not meant to be a question and answer or back and forth period.
Correct.
I understand.
But she named me
Yeah,
and
no,
made an allegation that is totally
they're
false.
allowed to do that to us.
I'll
They're
publish it
allowed to
online.
say
Yeah, they're allowed to say whatever they want.
Okay, that's, wow.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so, let's move forward to new business. ETSC and when does SSFL cleanup start? Alec?
Is that your timer
That
that's
was my,
going on?
that was my time.
Okay.
Wow. That's.
We have to clarify.
Okay, let's move forward. Let's move forward.
Just get over it.
We can talk about it later.
There are many people, including the politicians, but many people who are asking, when does the cleanup start? When does it physically start? I thought it was an interesting question, and so I started looking into it and getting some history on it. As background, we had a meeting with Jared, Cal EPA, and DTSC, and we discussed one of the major timelines is their environmental impact report. They said at that time that they were supporting the AOCs and that they were working on the EIR, but they didn't give us a date. About 2 weeks ago, John Luker originated a call between myself, Abe, and of course John, and the head of DTSC, the acting head of DTSC, and her staff, asked the question, do they have a recovery plan after the excavation is done at the SSFL? Are they going to restore the area? And her comment was, they do not have a plan. The other thing that we raised is, when are you going to have the EIR done? And she said they were working on it. That they were new management and so on. They were looking at things and whatever. So we don't have a timeline for the pacing document, which is the DTSC Environmental Impact Report. So I started looking into it, and I got a copy of their March activity report, and it's very interesting. They say they're going to have it done in 2019. The public comments were submitted to them at the end of 2017. So as the years roll by, we're still not getting a date on the EIR, and everything that happens in the cleanup, the further documentation requires that EIR that we don't know when it's going to be done. Then there's another pacing line, which is the investigative reports that are done for the various sub areas and DOE and NASA. They're all late, 12 of them. And the DOE one was submitted in 2016. And this whole group of investigative reports for Boeing are 2017, 2018, and they go back and forth with comments. They want more information. They disagree on analysis, and the reports are going back and forth, and some reports aren't even being responded to. Nothing will be cleaned up until those reports are complete. And I don't see these reports being complete I would say 9 to 12 months.
Make
So
it-
this goes side by side, and it appears that the clean out, the actual physical clean out, is way out there. If they get the EIR through, then something else happens. The lawsuit that Hirsch is appealing, if he wins and requires going back, DOE would have to prepare a new EIR for the building rubble. If he loses, then it continues on its path of what I've discussed. So then after those two things happen, oh, by the way, Boeing is supposed to produce a risk assessment, as is DOE and NASA. And DTSC says, well, we want a risk assessment for plots, 5-acre plots up there, which is what the zoning used to be. And we want backyard gardens, which says agricultural standard. Boeing said they're not going to do that. They're going to do that. They're going to produce a risk-based assessment for open space, which is the ultimate use. And DTSC says, well, we'll produce a risk assessment for lots and backyards.
Makes no
Once,
sense.
There's no logic to that.
Yeah.
once this is done, the EIR will not pin down the cleanup method, even though folks are expecting it. It will not. It will simply say this is what the environmental impact is. So after all this contention, Boeing turns in their risk assessment, the health or the data reports are approved, and DTSC has issued their EIR. Then DTSC will come back with a statement of basis that outlines the final cleanup plan. And that statement of basis then will say, this is what the cleanup's going to be in the various areas. Great. If there's disagreement and we go into lawsuits, you can add another 5 years. Did you have a question, Ron?
Well-
Yeah, Merle has a question.
Most of these statements here that I have, I mean, I'm listening to all of these things. And Alec, I think it's a good report. Thank you. What I don't understand about,
By the way, I'm not finished yet, so
oh, well, then I'll wait you through.
let me.
Okay.
So if there's a disagreement and somebody says, well, we don't want to clean up the background, then they go to court, which adds another 5 years. So my assessment at the end of this discouraging report is we're not going to cut the ground maybe for 5 or 10 years or maybe 15 years, and many of us won't be around. It's ridiculous.
Where is it?
And I understand that some of Hirsch's folks are in Washington trying to get money arranged in some kind of bills or something to fund this thing. Well, I don't know how they're going to fund it if they don't have the final reports yet. But that's never stopped Washington, right? You want a bridge to nowhere, we'll build one.
That's true.
So it's a very discouraging status report, and if you lay out the timeline that DTSC is following, it's very clear that DTSC is not putting the effort in to make this happen. It's very clear. And the people who say they're new management, well, they've been there since January. We don't see any increase in the number of data summaries being approved. It was very bad. Merle?
What I don't understand, now that I've sat on this committee now a few months, and at every committee meeting, most every committee meeting, there's been something that has come up about SSFL. And hearing these reports that are given by other board members and so forth. I don't understand if we represent stakeholders in our community, why we are not more proactive. Let me finish what I mean by that. Instead of passive. If I'm at a meeting like were at, Alec, and some of these things came up and just didn't make sense to the people that I represent, my hand goes up. And I want to know why. I want to know why, and I want to know when, because I represent 40,000 people in this community. And I firmly believe, I mean, I hear both sides of the coin. I hear the medical issues, the cancer issues, all of these things. And yet, politics is in the mix here. And there's a lot of slipping and there's a lot of sliding because we, who are representatives of the stakeholders, regardless of our own personal opinions, that's what it's about. Okay? All four of us were elected at this last election for that purpose. Okay? And we have to be proactive. We have to be visible, we have to be loud about it, and we have to make our voices be heard. I don't mean say do this or do that. I mean ask the questions that are going to push for answers. I mean, I really firmly believe that. Maybe because I'm an activist from the '60s, it's still in my soul. But my point is, too much of what we do is we sit back and we hear these reports and we assume, well, 5 years here, 10 years here, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. What are we going to do? Well, what we should do is to be proactive and not just sit back. But when we go to these meetings, the questions come up. Why? Why don't we have this report? What's going on? Well, if you did this, why isn't this happening? Why isn't that happening? Okay?
And the questions do come up, by the way. They do. We are more proactive than you might be aware of. Bonnie was next.
Tell me again who was at your meeting? Luker, you, Weisberg, and who were you meeting with?
DTSC people plus Wilson.
Plus who?
Wilson, the head of DTSC.
Okay. Also, Alec talked about the backyard garden. That's a cleanup to the people who live there, and thousands, if not millions of people live very, very close because they build up every single canyon, very, very close. And so that's what the backyard garden means, that nothing will run off into those neighbors, that the neighbors will be safe. It's not just for recreation, which they estimate at one hike a year you should be safe. That's not very much.
Thank you, Bonnie. Anybody else want to comment?
Let's just go back a little bit. And I'm not offering it as an excuse. I know who I am. I wrote the governor a letter, and I said, we need a meeting with the new people in charge of Cal, EPA, and DTSC. And that's how we got that first meeting. Is the governor's office told them to meet with us. They met with us and patted us on the head. It was very nice. And they went and met with Hirsch. And they told us on the way to meeting with Hirsch that they're going to support the cleaning up the background.
Yeah, they'd already made up their mind.
So then the next thing is John calls for this meeting, and I think her first name is Meredith, now that I think about it, Meredith Wilson. So we get on the phone and we're talking about various things, such as do they have the resources and so on. And then John says, well, where are you going to get the backfill and so on? The phone goes dead. Really, the phone goes dead. And so John says, is there anybody there? And they all come out and yes, we're working on it. And then there's another dead space. So they are just simply not responding with anything of any value. Go ahead.
Bonnie was next.
Did you meet with the governor on behalf of the neighborhood council?
No.
Thank you.
We now have an assemblyman who is proactive about this SSFL issue. He said so at the event that we were at the other day, okay? I don't know if Bonnie, you were there or not, but
Where was that?
at Elko Elko on Shoe, the new.
Is that
No,
just?
Bonnie wasn't,
No,
Bonnie
I
wasn't
wasn't
there.
there.
Oh, you were there. Yeah, Jesse Gabriel.
Okay.
Because he mentioned it, he talked about it, that it's on his things he wants to get into.
Who is it?
Jesse Gabriel, okay?
State
senator.
State senator, right. We know, because he has said it to us when he came to our tent, that Henry Stern is on top of this, okay? So if we're going to be, and I got a big voice, okay, as you all know, but you bring these people into the game, once they know that there are 40,000 people or whatever that are saying this, you bring them in, and then they push forward. We push them to push forward, That's what I mean by being proactive and starting at our level and be proactive about it. And Gabriel was very vocal about it at this meeting, wasn't he? I think he was. He talked about it.
I heard.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all agree with you, but I will say that Steve and I met with Jeremy Wolf from Henry Stern's office, and we asked for some testing. We've asked in email, we've asked in person, and nothing's happening. It's like, to your face, they say, oh yeah, that's a great idea, and then it seems to just kind of lay
And
there.
you do it again.
Yeah, I
And you
know.
do it again.
I know.
And I have no humility, okay, when it comes to those things. I really don't. To get something done, to get a response to something. If they don't do it, you do it again, you do it again, you do it again. You walk in there and say, you didn't do it this time, you gotta do it now. What are you gonna do about it? Can we help you do it?
Yeah.
All of those kinds of things that pushy producers know how to do.
So I want to make a comment, and then there's two people I'm going to call on. Bonnie was first, and Brad was next. Perhaps it's time for us to write another letter from the board and send it. And this time, I think what we need to do is to get into the fact that what the community wants, okay, who we represent. To get into the aspect of we want to make sure the cure doesn't kill the patient.
Oh, good phrase.
Okay.
Excellent phrase, actually.
And I think that's understandable to say it that way. And so I think that we're at that point where we need to consider that again, and it needs to come out of this committee. That said, Bonnie and then Brad.
I don't know if anybody read the last Ricker report sent out by DTSC, but they're putting pressure on Boeing and NASA. They're telling NASA we want a full write-up of the radionuclides on your property, and they didn't do nuclear work there. We want all the chemicals, they want those plumes worked on. They want more
What's a
monitoring.
plume?
A plume is like a giant pond, but it's underground.
Oh.
Okay, they have 500,000 gallons of TCE in the groundwater.
Oh
It's
my
already
God.
down below the level of the mountain, and it is moving. They don't know how far north it is moving. They want more wells in. They want to have that perchlorate characterized, because we have that in Dayton Canyon, and they did manufacturing up there in building 395, I think it was. So they're putting pressure on them in their report, and they want to know what they're going to do about it. So I was glad to see that. And in their report, they're talking about cleanup to the AOC. So
What is the title of this report?
People don't do
it's the
things.
Ricker report dated 5/21, just got it. And start at the end and then go forward. You'll read about the plumes and what they want done with those plumes. They want them identified, they want more wells in, and then go up.
Is that a RIC report or the activity
It's a Ricker report,
Or the activity report?
yeah, it's a Ricker,
Is there
no, it's
a
a
way of,
Ricker.
is there a way of accessing those plumes in order to extract contamination?
They used to spray TCE, they used to pump it up and they had giant towers and they would spray it and it would volatilize. And then they found the perchlorate got in there, so they stopped. That was many years ago.
Let me update you on that. Yes,
So they stopped.
they are aware of the
spraying.
plume. They do pump it. They do treat the water, and they put water back into the system. My understanding is they know exactly where the plume is. It's on the northeast corner of the property.
Not if you, well, sure they know where it is. They don't know where it's spreading. They said it's spreading from all around, northeast, southwest. They don't know how
Who
deep it is.
knows that it's spreading?
That's what DTSC wrote. Okay,
I'll look for it. A Ricker report.
they said the plume is not stable. They want more information in Boeing's report of the Chatsworth Formation.
Okay.
The lateral and the vertical extent of perchlorate has not been defined. The borehole is not adequate. Additional data is needed to define the perchlorate plume. One well is not adequate.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that the cleanup, the AOC cleanup, doesn't address groundwater.
No,
So it doesn't address it anyway.
No.
So this is a separate issue. And I think we all realize that the groundwater contamination is the biggest problem because we're not sure, or they're not sure how to deal with that.
and it's in seeming. It's been in
Yeah,
seeming for
it's in-
years and
yeah.
years.
And they also, it's also very difficult to track.
It's
where
what?
going. It's difficult to track where it's going.
Right.
So,
And
yeah, that's,
it moves the fastest. That's what the
That's-
report says.
yeah, that's one of the three channels through which the contamination can leave the site, and the most difficult one to deal with. And I'm not sure, the AOC is primarily dealing with
Soil.
the soil contamination.
Can I interrupt with a comment?
Sure.
99% of the water or seeming comes down the aqueduct through the processing and comes into seeming.
Yeah.
There are two wells, I think, at the intersection of Cochrane and Sycamore that they have used, and I'm not aware there's any TCE. But when people-
Perchlorate is in
Perchlorate,
their
yes.
walked wells.
Perchlorate, right. When people tell you about these chemicals, and they tell you about various leads and nuclides and stuff, they never tell you the quantities, number one, or they never tell you if it's a risk to human health.
But then you
So
ask.
you walk away from the statements thinking there's danger there, and you're not quite sure what danger are we talking
But
about.
then you ask. That's my point.
Well, no, the problem is getting those questions answered. Is that a lot of times you ask the question and you're told, well, we'll look into it and get back to you. And of course, nobody ever gets back to you. So it's a little bit difficult to get the results. I know you spoke, I think Brad was next, and then Bonnie can come back to you. And then Shar.
Very simple correction, my earlier statement, Jesse Gabriel is in fact a member of the state assembly.
That's what I thought.
That's what I
Henry
said.
Stern is our state senator.
That's what I
That's
said.
what you said.
That was what I said too.
Well,
That was what I mumbled.
Your correction was incorrect.
both Steve and I corrected you, and we were both wrong.
No, I actually said the right one. It's an assembly, but then I thought that you were probably right because you're smarter than I am. So I figured if you said it was Senate, then I forget, never mind.
We got it right now.
Okay, Shar,
Was I right?
is it back to Bonnie and then Shar? Okay.
Okay, I just have a statement. This is for Merle's sake.
I'm wrong, yes.
Merle. There is no safe dose of radiation. If they find it, it's deadly.
What
The
is,
National Academy of Science
could you
study.
repeat that, please?
There is no safe level of radiation. If you find it, it's deadly. The National Academy of Science studied the Japanese for 50 years, and there is no safe level. They did 7 reports, no safe level, and we had at Alpha 8, which is Dayton Canyon, we had alpha radiation. And in another air monitoring report, Phil Rutherford said that the radiation was high during the fire, higher than before the fire, higher than after the fire, and that report also just came out.
Thank you.
Okay.
Shar.
Okay, two things. Remember, this goes back now, I'm going back quite a few years, when we had, Water U. Remember that when they?
Groundwater, yeah.
Right, okay. It seemed to me, if I remember correctly, that the summary of Water U basically was that all of this water and contamination was really stuck down in between all of that shale and those rocks within that mountain.
Sandstone.
Sandstone, right.
Do you believe that?
I mean, I don't know, do they just still do the seeps and streams reports?
When the rains come in, don't you think they're pushing it? Don't
How-
you think they're
How
moving
could she
it?
not believe science and you just say you're gonna come up with these
Stop it.
theories? I don't understand.
I mean, I don't know.
I don't believe it.
I'm asking a question.
I don't
mean,
believe it.
I don't know.
Simi Valley has a very high water table. They used to pump the groundwater for agriculture. They don't do that anymore. They have problems with the water rising up and flooding people's yards. And that's when they found perchlorate, was at the two wells that they've been using for drinking water.
But for us, because obviously we certainly care about the people in Simi Valley, but our main concern with this committee is for West Hills. The seeps and streams reports is what I thought was the most important asset for us to know what's coming off that mountain. That's one thing. The other thing was, and this is just something I heard recently, so if any of you have any information on this, I had heard, this hearsay thing, that DTSC, that either we're going to be replacing, like the people that we're dealing with currently, or replacing them altogether. Have you heard any of that?
No.
Okay, yeah, that was, okay.
I thought we had a new team.
Well, that's what I thought too. That's why I was kind of like going, are you sure
I don't know
about
what the
this?
truth is, but yeah, there's rumors.
And did you hear that
Yeah,
rumor
but-
too?
Yeah.
Okay,
but
okay.
I don't know where it's going, if anywhere.
So Bonnie, you haven't heard anything about that?
I thought we had a new team. I haven't
We
heard
still
that
need to move
much.
on to
Tell you
the
what.
Well,
last-
I just wanna address one thing.
Mhm.
The theory was, up till about the sixties, by the US Academy of Sciences, that no radiation is good.
Right.
All radiation is bad, and it's cumulative. So
Right.
as you go through your lifetime and you have these dental exams, the Academy of Science, about 20 years ago, said that's not true. It's a nonlinear threshold. You come down and it says in this minor levels that it is not cumulative. That's how you're able to go to the doctor, the dentist, to get into an airplane and get cosmic radiation and so on. And it doesn't harm you to the degree that higher radiation does. But what happened was this initial theory said everything's bad, so all of the regulations that came out were so tight, and now the Academy of Science is trying to get them loosened up to deal with their current perspective of radiation.
Well, and I think we have to look at all the other issues too, like microwaves and cell phones and cell towers and, there's a lot of waves out there. So, there's a lot
Doesn't
out
pay to wake up in the morning.
Oh,
Well, you look at all those things, but this letter is at the beginning of 2 weeks of the high bay area being full of radiation. All the fuel rods are melting, and they released radiation for 2 weeks, 300,000 times the current dose. That's safe.
But that letter again
But
is
that
from
was from
1959.
59, right?
I just saw it, okay? I
No,
tried to make copies and I couldn't do it without getting all the other stuff around it.
But that's from 1959.
1959, July 17,
70
they're,
years
they're
ago.
trying to get
Years.
Atomics International to shut it down. They said it says intermittent airborne activity at the SRE has been a long problem, but the primary reason for this recommendation was the condition occurring on July the 12th.
I was
60
having-
years ago.
I was having my bar mitzvah then.
The thing that Chris Roll
You didn't
put
invite me.
together, where she got 3 doctorates in science and so on, and they came and spoke to us, remember, in that CME hall, and their conclusion was there was no radiation released. The temperatures, this is science speaking here.
I've got the proof right
Look,
here.
look, you know, I'm gonna bring this
Yeah.
discussion to a close, but
So there are other theories.
but again, I wanna reiterate that, you know, discussing what happened in 1959, how the radiation got there, how the chemical contamination got there, it's all ancient history, and it doesn't matter. What matters is there is contamination. Contamination needs to be cleaned up. To what level it needs to be cleaned up in order to make it safe for, you know, for humans and animals,
And how,
you know, is what the question is. And unfortunately, the various factions are so busy fighting each other that everything keeps getting put off and put off and put off. So, you know, if people would stop fighting and agree that, you know, there was a comment made earlier, Christina Walsh said that at a meeting that I said, and I did say it, that she and I want the same thing. And it's absolutely true. She told me at one of these meetings, yes, we want the same thing. The difference is that she thinks there's a different path to getting it than I do. Her path is ask for the moon and maybe we'll get what I want. And my path is just tell them what you want, let's just go get it done, instead of having these factions fighting. But, so anyway, with that, I want to close this. We do want to move on because we're now almost 50 minutes into the meeting. So let's move on to old business for review and action, discussion, discuss the environmental community projects, forums, town hall meetings, etc.
I'd like to go back to something that Merle has suggested. In a perfect world, if they had the SSFL problem, DTSC would be a leader. And they would come forward and say, we have the science, we have the results, this is the direction forward, and then the public comes in and supports DTSC. DTSC in our organization, in our present time, is not a leader. It's a political outgrowth. And anytime you speak up, Hirsch gets you fired.
Hirsch gets me fired?
That's the third time you've said Dan Hirsch's name.
Dan Hirsch, we're sitting in a meeting, Norm
I
Riley.
don't know who he is.
He's
The greatest man
he's
I
an
ever knew.
activist. But we're sitting in a meeting and the DTSC guy, who happened to be Norm Riley at the time, said he was gonna do something. Hirsch said, well, he wants it done immediately. And Norm says, well, what's the big hurry? The following day, Norm's in a different job. It's the following day.
Well,
And
doesn't
that's
matter.
only one guy.
So we can get into
But it's
Hirsch's.
very,
I'll-
very
I'll-
political, so who do we go to?
I'll bring it.
Merle,
I'll bring it.
yeah, but we're not even on that topic at the moment.
Yeah, we're off the topic.
We moved on. I don't wanna go there. We're
Yeah,
not on
so
that.
let's get back on track here, environmental community projects, forums, town hall meetings. So, what we're looking for is subjects for us to move forward on so that we can be of service to our community. Merle's hand was first, Char's next.
Something I thought of, only because it's affecting me, is that somehow on our website, maybe we do a link to pollen.com, because I like to know every day what the pollen count is, okay? And we are an environment committee, and pollen is a very big thing to many of us, and I find as I'm getting older, it's affecting me more and more and more and more. I just went online and found that there's a website that is pollen.com that gives one the pollen count, projected pollen count every day.
That's a good
you know,
idea.
for the week.
We've
But-
also been trying to get monitoring for the community to monitor the other chemicals and contaminants that are in the air in various
But
parts.
so many people are affected with allergies.
Yeah, no, it's
And,
that's a good point.
and for us to be, again, proactive as an environment committee, and us to have on our page or website, you know, you wanna know what the pollen count's gonna be 2 days from now, go to here, link it up, whatever. We don't have to do the count,
Yeah, it
somebody
does-
else is counting.
It does involve also a public health committee. And it might be a better fit for that committee, but we
Well,
certainly
For
could
the
look at it.
environment, so.
Yeah, we certainly could look at it.
Right.
Discussing pollen, I think would be a good topic for this committee.
Okay.
For next month, if you guys agree. And I will look at pollen.com. Want to see who they are. We have to be careful who we put on our website.
Yeah.
And then we can discuss it and the committee can decide.
Excellent. He's gonna look on his own time.
So I will look at my own.
Who's next?
I think Shar.
Shar and then Bonnie.
What I was gonna say is, that water board meeting July 11th, I think instead of having our meeting in July, what day of the week is that, do you know?
July 11th,
I think a
it's on Thursday,
Okay,
it's on Thursday.
Where's the meeting?
It's a water board meeting in Simi.
could I suggest that we have that as our environment committee meeting? I think that would be an
I'll
important
be out
meeting
of
to.
town.
Okay,
to plan.
I'll be out of town.
Problem is, it's not
I'll
within
take
West.
Yeah, it has to be in West Hill, so we can't do that.
Oh, it does?
Even
Yeah.
though, well, even Santa Susana, it's not in West Hills, even though it's running down.
No, but if we have a meeting that's some other meeting, it's gonna be the meeting for this, it still has to be in West Hill.
Yeah. Well, I'm going, I can report next month.
Okay.
I know sometimes they have it at Corporate Point, which is in West Hills.
Yeah, no,
But-
this is specifically about the
Okay.
Simi wells.
Oh,
Okay, so I have a comment about projects. I'd like to see Boeing out of this neighborhood council. I would like to see the hiking stopped. I would like to see John Luger stop taking kids up to plant oak trees up there, especially after the fire, and knowing what was released. I mean, he's gone to the schools and he's offered to take the kids up.
I don't think we can have it stop doing that.
Well, we can take Boeing out of the neighborhood council. Why should they did not get elected to be in
what
the
does that
neighborhood
mean
council.
now?
I
What does
don't
that mean?
understand what
Boeing's
they
not on
mean.
the council.
Well, I think
They're
she-
giving bus rides. They want us to keep it top secret. Don't tell anybody. They gave you guys a bus ride. You commented on the fire and you didn't believe it was 80% burned, which it was. And it was in the report and you argued with Christina about that.
What I said was that what I saw visually in February did not, what I saw, and I was basing it on trees because some of the ground cover had already started to rejuvenate.
I know, but
That-
you
that
argued
based
with
on-
Christina and you shouldn't have done that.
But based on the trees, I did not feel that, it did not appear to me that 80% of the site was burned.
It was 80%.
Alec was with me, I don't know what his impression was.
Well, how
And
did
that
you
wasn't
guys?
kept
Well,
secret or
going back to
anything.
it, it wasn't a secret
Yeah,
meeting,
I was
I was
gonna
sitting
say.
next to Dan Hirsch.
It wasn't, it was very transparent.
There
Well,
was-
how come the neighborhood council, some of you get to go on a
No, it went to
Well, it
every board member.
It wasn't the neighborhood council. What happened, my understanding, and Alex,
Council of Governors, the meeting that I set up.
Oh,
Yeah.
that, you're talking about a different meeting.
no, Alex set up a meeting, and then there were people from all different factions and sides of this issue
Right.
that were invited to go on a bus tour. There are a limited number of seats on the bus. Alec was told that he could invite 2 people in addition to himself.
See, but Boeing made the rules.
But Dan Hirsch was there. There were,
Everybody was
Yeah.
represented,
Buses.
everybody was represented.
Bumstead was there,
Yeah, Melissa was there. I spoke with her at length, as a matter of fact.
Denise was there.
Denise Dunfield was there.
Anyway, I'd like to see Boeing
I
out
wasn't
of our
there.
neighborhood.
Well,
I don't
Boeing,
ride
okay,
buses.
Why should they offer a bus trip and then make
They're
us
not-
keep it secret?
I
They didn't
understand,
keep it
I
a
understand
secret.
what you're saying, but I just wanna say, I don't think that Boeing is quote unquote in our neighborhood council.
right.
They don't have any influence, direct or indirectly, with any of the people on this committee. I know that you wanna think that that's not true, but to the best of my knowledge, Alec is not in Boeing's pocket. Alec is in,
I didn't say that.
okay,
I didn't say
but
that.
you're implying that.
I own stock.
I saw Alec
And-
at this
and
water
clearly-
board, at
and
this
clearly-
hearing.
And clearly, if you want this committee to take a position on this matter that you're bringing up, we're happy to take a position on it.
No, I'm not.
Which one was that, the Scouts?
No, I'm not.
No, we're happy to take a position on whether or not we want to take a position on John Luker's hikes. We have no control over what John Luker does.
Well, he's coming to us for money, and he's going to the schools to bring children.
Well,
That's true.
the money that he's
Money
asking,
is true.
the money issue that he's asking for is the planting of the oak trees.
But they're going into toxic land. They're going into Dayton Canyon, they're going up in the buffer zone.
That's
How
all
do you
true.
know it's
But
toxic?
that's a matter of opinion, that's the problem.
That's
I
all
I mean,
true.
especially after the fire.
And that's
No,
something to consider.
It's a
when
matter of
request is made.
opinion, and there isn't anything scientifically or any testing at the sites where those trees are being planted.
But
that
it's
I'm
something to
aware of.
consider when the request is made.
Yeah, it is, but there's,
Not for us to.
again, we're trying to rely on scientific information,
Well,
for
we're
us
gonna
to
be
determine
getting
that
some
now.
reports back, we're gonna
And-
be getting back
and that's been
the water
the
board
problem,
report
is
in October.
that's been the problem, is having current information, because a lot of the information in the reports that we've been dealing with are, 5-10 years old?
You know, we just got a bunch of new stuff,
Well,
I've been going
That's
through
what
and
we,
reading.
everything has to be, we have to follow the science. Shar, and then Earl, whatever it is.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, when you mentioned about getting Boeing out of the committee, you know, it's like with any committee, like with zoning and planning. If we don't have the communication in zoning, let's say between the developers, sometimes they lie, sometimes they cheat. Just like maybe Boeing or DTSC or even people on the other side of the issue. If you cut off the communication, then you're nowhere. I think that you have to deal with these people, you know, like it or not, because you need to have those lines of communication. Or it just becomes one-sided.
DTSC is our side, the Regional Water Board is our side.
It depends who you
The air
talk
quality
to.
management is our side, as
Yeah,
best as they
sometimes.
can be,
Excuse me,
sometimes,
excuse
as
me.
best as
One of
they
the
can
things
be.
to,
I'm next to
if
talk.
we are to take a,
Actually,
I'm next to
Merle
talk.
is next.
Yeah, we're all-
okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, because
I'm
we're
next to
getting a
talk.
little out of control, I'm trying to, I want everybody to have a chance
First of
to
all,
interact.
Thank you, Steve. First of all, there are no sides. There's an issue and a problem and an issue, and that's what we're dealing with. I'm tired of hearing about this side or that side. So I won't recognize that concept. But let me come back to this request for the MPG, which is what I wanted to talk about to begin with. There is a point to be made here that, because the MPG request, as per our minutes here, will be made from this committee, through this committee, to the board. And it's worthwhile to talk to John Luker about these issues that Bonnie is raising, okay? Before we support that MPG. I'm only bringing
The
that up.
problem is that we've completely gone off topic, and I have to bring us back to topic. We are discussing projects and possible things to consider moving forward for this committee, so we need to get
Can I
off
ask
this.
a question? If we want to discuss Boy Scouts, I have no problem doing that. I think that Boeing should come in here and tell us why they feel it's safe to have people in buses in Boy Scouts.
I'm not dealing, I'm not gonna stay,
I'm not.
I'm not gonna stay in this committee if we're gonna continue to talk about that.
Yeah, we really,
Al.
what I'd like to do is I'd like to see us come up with,
I apologize.
community items that
to our
are not
members.
related to Santa Susana Field Laboratory, because this is not gonna get settled. You know, I mean, there's, every side has their own way of putting their own spin on it. You know, like some people are calling Boeing one of the polluters.
Well,
Boeing
they
didn't,
are,
they didn't even own the property when the pollution happened.
well, but they did, okay,
Let's
they
not
did,
debate this
But
issue.
let's not debate it,
but
I'm
they
just saying,
are, they're
everybody has
three
their,
polluters,
everybody has their,
whatever you wanna call
everybody
them.
has their own opinion. So I wanna get off this topic of Santa Susana Field Laboratory. If you have something that doesn't have to do with Santa Susana Field Laboratory, please, I do recognize.
Can I make one comment?
No, no,
This
no.
is just for Burl.
The chair recognizes Brad.
Idea for project. I brought this up once before. The city of Los Angeles of Urban Forestry.
Urban what?
Urban Forestry recognizes that our lack of tree canopy and our dying tree canopy is a major problem in this city. When these houses were put in through this area, there was a parkway tree
Really?
in front of every house.
Yes.
Many blocks, there may be one left.
Actually, I have one in front of my house.
Your house is newer.
They're dying, is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Mine are gone.
So
I see
what
that.
is your suggestion, Red?
Look into it. There are reports available from the city Department of Urban
Yeah.
Forestry. And recommend, and then push them to do replanting in West Hills.
But, oh, on parkway trees.
Yeah.
Or in the yards. I just have one comment from Merle on why I'm concerned about John Luker taking children.
We're not on that topic.
Please let me make a comment.
I
Please
would-
let me give the study that was done. Women and children are 50% more at risk. That's why.
Thank you. No more discussion on that issue, please.
Thank you,
because
Bob.
We can
Yes.
go on until morning and I'll go out to breakfast if we want to stay on that topic.
Well, we've only been at it for an hour. It's not too bad.
It's not that, except I thought the meeting started a half an hour early, so.
Let's go on, please.
So, okay, so we have a couple of suggestions. Anybody else have any ideas for this committee?
Planning, that issue too.
Tony, no?
I'm staying out of this.
You're a bright guy, you always have good ideas. All right, I think we've covered the agenda, so I want to thank everybody for attending the meeting tonight. The meeting is adjourned at 8:05.